Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Magic Arena Run. Today, it's not quite a game episode, but it's more like an op-ed piece here. So pretty much last night, actually, this morning, I woke up and I came across this article. Actually, everyone in Facebook was talking about this article. So pretty much what happened is that a bunch of cards from the past, like let's see if I can in particular, Invoke Prejudice. This one is the highlight card, but they did take the time to remove a bunch of other cards. So these cards are all banned, but not for in-game reasons. These are pretty much banned for because of these are pretty much banned for, well, what you say is being racist, and it's especially at this time, it's kind of very where everything's very sensitive right now. That yes, it's a very good time to do some introspection, and maybe a very good time to do some cleaning up also. Now, they're not just removing the cards as if they did not exist. These cards still exist. You will not be able to see the art on Gather. Instead, you'll see this. We've removed this card image from our database due to its racist depiction, text, or combination thereof. Racism in any form is unacceptable and has no place in our games nor anywhere. And I did take a look. I remember some of these cards. I took a look at a bunch of the rest. Unfortunately, thanks Google, we're not going to be able to erase this art completely. But at least in terms of in terms of a company taking a stand, this is the best way to handle it. Card text is still there, mana cost is still there, artist credits are still there. This is going to be quite relevant. Another thing to note is that card is racist, made even worse by the multiverse ID. It was unfortunately codified with years ago, so this part, I believe, is somewhat coincidental because not everyone's quite in the know. So taking a look back here, obviously Invoke Prejudice, a card from 1994, is not the 485th, 302nd card. So this ID is definitely different. They've already changed that. I'm not going to show you how to get the original ID, but a little investigation and you can on your own, and you can kind of understand why. Again, they say it's coincidental, and in a world of databases and that are very impersonal, yes, this thing can happen sometimes. So it's a very good job in dealing with this. That said, some people are already saying that, oh, what? Well, some people are complaining that they've gone too far, erasing history and whatnot. I personally believe that if you give some people the chance, they would actually want to erase history completely if they could. But this is a case where it's not going to be so. So this is not essentially erasing history, but it's more of taking a stand again in history. Again, it's not completely erased. We just lose the card art, which is pretty much the most offensive of any of these. And I've seen the card arts, and the game says it's the message says it's about combination of the art or the text or both. So far, it looks like it's art. It's more of a combination. It's either art alone or art plus text. It's so far thank goodness it has not just been text alone. No one's been checking flavor text recently, but if I remember correct, but to the best of my knowledge, it hasn't touched into real world settings. In a way, this is a big reference as to why we've moved away from associating it too much with the real world, with our world, with the current world we're at. That that we can get inspiration, but we don't try to actually copy. Now for some of these cards, as in particular, Stone Throwing Devils, Jihad, these are direct riffs of I wouldn't even say it's a direct riff of Arabian Nights. It's more of it's more of the early, it's the earliest attempt on a top-down set where they take they take a culture, and unfortunately, some like for example, Stone Throwing Devils is ba- it's basically it's basically a reference to the um, to a practice in Mecca where what they would do is they have this ritual called the stoning of the devil, which not an actual devil, it's a rock, but they would throw stones on it, and the phrase actually the actual there is an actual religious practice, but the phrase here itself is actually quite questionable. Combined with the art, this art I remember, yeah, this one was very questionable. Pradesh Gypsies is so this one's towards our Middle East, some of our Middle Eastern brethren. Pradesh Gypsies more towards those in India and South India. Pradesh is an actual region. Again, this is why we've kind of tried to move away from using real world places if possible. Jihad is a reference. Actually, it's more of a reference towards of violence towards Westerners in this modern day and age. So it's not completely about pandering to minorities. In fact, it also deals with the white majority as well. Well, it's not even the white majority, but it deals with it deals with them somewhat. And as far as playability goes, none of these cards, with the exception of Crusade is the only one that seems relatively playable. It's been reprinted many times. Well, not it's been many times in the early past. It's been also reprinted in a few dual decks recently. It's been supplanted by Honor of the Pure nowadays, but give it. But yeah, this is a bit of history that really, it's a, in a sense that we we're not how do you it's very hard for me to talk about this. Like, I remember one time when I was invited to judge a custom card creation contest. It was basically because I back in the day I would I would volunteer to judge every now and then. Basically, I would take a look. There would be a custom card contest. There would be a team and whatnot, and I would give judgments based on card mechanics. A lot of them had art, so I would judge including that too. I remember there was one group of submissions. It had some pretty raunchy art, but there but it was a combination of art and flavor text and name that was very uncomfortable because it was tongue in cheek depicting violence against against one subset, and I and I and I called and I called them out on it. It's actually in a scale of max 15 points. I actually docked 2 points. It wasn't a very big dock because I'm mostly concerned with the mechanics, but I did call them out on it, and they complained about it, saying that oh this is supposed to be a fun event and whatnot, but one person's fun is not necessarily something that you show here. And sometimes it's not necessarily fun. Sometimes there could be some malicious intent. In doing some more research, in particular to Invoke Prejudice, the artist here, Harold McNeil, is regarded to be a very controversial artist. There's an article on him in Cool Stuff Inc. about top 11 controversial artists. He definitely made it to the end of the article, and for a particularly good reason. I'm hovering over here. You can look at the article over yourself, but suffice to say that the reason the art getting highlighted is not a random coincidence. Now for the record, all the cards here that had a combination of questionable art and whatnot, all of them came from the really early history of Magic. So what would happen here is, and this one I had to go through multiple sources to check this up. So I went to Mark Rosewater's Drive to Work podcast. It's podcast number 63 for 1993. Basically, the reason one of the assurances in making Magic the Gathering early was that there was an easy source of art. So on further inspection, here's the book Generation Decks, Unofficial History of Gaming Phenomenon. Let's go take a look at that. And this one's particular for Magic the Gathering by Titus Chalk. So the original plan was to actually just get a bunch of secondhand, buy the art secondhand generic, and there was the concept of art commissions was not there yet. So it was literally whatever people painted, they would get it. And thank goodness for thank goodness for Jesper Myforce. He would eventually move on to become the first art director. The idea of just getting that art that would be, it's basically second and third use rights, and the sources would be pretty much super typical fantasy and 80s and 90s fantasy art. You get a lot of really raunchy and very questionable art if you consider today's some sensibilities. The fact that they decided to move to this model from the very beginning, it was a correct step in the. It was a correct step. It was the right direction, a step in the right direction. That's the phrasing. And so what happened was instead of getting just some second and third hand art from anywhere, they got a stable of established. They got a stable of artists. Basically, Jesper started with the people that he knew from Cornish College. Also, another source of art was from hold on. From Lisa Stevens. So basically, between the two of them, they got a lot of the initial artists, and a bunch of them would move on to be mainstays. So it's pretty much from that close knit. I wouldn't say close knit. It's more like we all just happen to know each other that way. So that's pretty much how the art went. So what they would give the name of the card, and that's it. It was just name of the card. Okay, I'll take that. I'll take the name. Then I'll do the art, and the art would come back. And you have to remember, this was back in the day when we were pushed. Deadlines were being pushed. Another thing common with all of the sets listed, the questionable art, Legends, Arabian Nights. Those sets were super rushed. They were basically feeding the magic machine, and they needed to come up with sets very quickly. If you look over the early history, 1993, 1994, 1995, they pretty much had to churn out a set I think pretty much around the same cycle every 4 or 5 months, and this was without a 2-year and this was without the 2-year design and development lead. So imagine how much time these artists had. Never mind that. Imagine how much time the company had to source the art. So pretty much if an art was sent back, there were some arts that never did get used, but for the most part, choice was quite limited. They did the early days did make some good use of how do you say this? Yeah, they did make mention that they tried to avoid there was a step towards avoiding the same old fantasy tropes about especially with regards to how women are portrayed in early fantasy art. Again, back in the day, I was not only doing custom card judging, I was also doing some custom cards as well. So I would go into the habit of searching up I would search for like old classic D and old classic fantasy art. And yeah, there's some really good art there, but a lot of them I would say very niche nowadays, to put it mildly. A lot of it's not really. Heck, some of them is technically not safe for work. Never mind, not safe for social media. So basically they already So there were still so there were still a few guidelines, and that was a very good start. But again, sometimes some cards would slip through the cracks. Invoke Prejudice was definitely one of them. So, what can I say? Is Wizards trying to erase history? Not so much erase history, because they're actually basically acknowledging history. The fact that they're acting on it is much better, because the one thing they could have easily done is to just ignore everything. Like I tell you now that there is, the way the world cycles nowadays, it's very easy to forget. In fact, we keep repeating a lot of mistakes from the past, so and a lot of it seems to be cyclical. So, like, this is not let's be fair, this is not the first riot over someone. When I think of this time, the first person I think of is Rodney King. So as you can see, it's a cycle. It's a vicious cycle, and the fact that they're actually I would say that it's a shame that they did not act on this earlier. I can say better late than never, but things could, we could Wizards have done more. They probably did as much as they could, in the fact that they were given attention to it now. Like this, like we had the perfect conflux of information and sensitivity, that this is probably the only time this is gonna happen. If Wizards did not make the decision on this now, there would never be another time like this again. And again, this is not racism towards just one particular group. It's racism towards every group of humanity, as far as I see. So this one's actually quite balanced. Also, some people are saying, "Oh, but how come some other cards are not listing that up and whatnot?" Well, again, it's really a combination of. There are really multiple factors. I guess some other cards could also be removed, but the fact that they're actually moving to remove some of the worst offenders is a pretty good job. So, and this is also not the first time that company has had to censure art. Although this first time they've had to remove cards altogether. There was a history, like when Magic was entering the Chinese market, that some arts had to be altered because, again, this one's a case of sensitivity towards that market. And if they're willing to do this, and you have to also remember that there was a time that back in the 80s, where there's again some sensitivity over the depiction of demonology. Though in that case, that one is more similar to the temperance movement, in which case it's blaming an outside source rather than blaming the human within. Unfortunately, racism, this one really stems from within. There is no demon to blame here but ourselves. So again, if anything, I appreciate this, because for most people, they would not really care. Most of them would never see these cards, much less play with them. But for me, who does care about this, I actually did the research over this, and I can understand why. So yeah, that's pretty much my quick op-ed piece. I really have to say that this is pretty much one step in the direction. Yes, it happens to be aligned with the most sensitively charged moment, but let's be honest, it was never gonna get called into attention otherwise. So it is a case of like this is the confluence of events, and this is what we have to do. Personally, I would prefer I like the stone throwing devils and jihad. I would prefer if they did not exist in the first place, because just the words themselves have some serious connotations. The case of yeah, imprison, really bad art choice, but also there's some combination with the text, so that was a problem. Cleanse, if it did anything other than what it said on the card, I it probably would have been, okay. Crusade, yeah, as a Christian, I would read. As a Christian, this is basically one of the most shameful moments in Roman Catholic history. And in fact, yeah, removing the card art actually calls more attention to it. But the attention is not bad, because it basically calls us into attention that yes, we have. It's not like that we're so pure and so perfect to begin with. We've had this weird history. Not weird. No, we've had a really bad history. No, we've never been perfect and whatnot. Oh, and unknown exception. Something's wrong. I guess that's. Yep, Google Chrome hates me. Let's see. Okay, there you go. That's back. And let's see, maybe. But you know what? I guess that should be enough. So that's it for this quick op-ed piece. If do tell me how you feel about this. Like do you think it's a long time coming? Do you think they've gone too far? Do you think they didn't do enough? I let you guys know how I feel, but I want to. But otherwise, yeah, do let me know. I'm gonna turn off comments on this one, because this is gonna be probably very charged and whatnot. On the brighter side of things, I will have another top 10, and we'll have some of the usual content in the future. But until then, especially in this day and age, everyone stay safe. But more importantly, everyone, let's be humble, and let's be humble. Let's be gracious and kind towards one another. We have to understand that in the to quote the great Edward James Olmos, when he was giving a speech in the United Nations, actually he and the cast of Battlestar Galactica, he raised a point and said, I have to raise the point that nope, there is only one race, and that is the human race. And pretty much that's the attitude that we should have. Until then, thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you guys again next time. Take care, God bless, stay safe wherever you are. Have a great day.